Hi, good afternoon. This is Nikki Burnett with Taste Life Nutrition. I'm a functional nutritionist, and I practice strategic evidence-based nutritional consulting. I should probably talk a little bit about what that means every now and then. What that means is I look at the body as a whole. I look at the body inside as well as outside. So outside environmental factors, stress factors. I run labs, which is a big part of my practice and a big part of helping me understand a body and what's going on with a body, and then helping me put a protocol together. So labs are super key to me and to my practice and in helping my clients. Okay, so let's move on to the fun stuff. I came across an article, and I have to be honest with you, I am sometimes a little late on things. I have a good friend of mine who sent me this article at the beginning of the year, and it's called Nutrition Trends for 2018 According to the Pros. She had asked me to comment on it, and just like everybody else, sometimes I get a little bit bogged down, and that's what happened. So I came back to this article finally and decided I needed to read it and see what it says. And it's pretty interesting because so many articles, it comes to, the new nutrition trends for the year and what are we doing? It's talking about the new superfood, or it's talking about some diet plan. And this is a little bit of that, except not the superfood. It's about other things like mindful eating, like paying attention to your food, eating more vegetables. So I thought I would go through the article. Bear with me a little bit. It's a little bit wordy, but it's good. And I'll post it down below when I'm finished here so you can read it as well. It's an article, I guess it's sponsored by Sunbasket. My friend is a big fan of Sunbasket. I haven't tried them yet. But I've tried it at her house. And it was great. But I don't have an experience with it yet. But she absolutely loves it. And so that's where this article comes from, or is sponsored by, I suppose. Okay, so the first nutrition trend that they see is intuitive and mindful eating, and sustainable and eating sustainably in the long term. And I think that this is certainly something that we should all be aware of, and something that I talk to all of my clients about is being aware of what we're putting in our mouth, what we're putting in our bodies, what's in our environment, and feeling how your food feels. So really being in tune. And so let's talk about that piece of it for a second. When we eat, when we're mindfully eating, we slow down. We shouldn't be at the computer. We shouldn't be driving. We shouldn't be in a meeting. We stop, we slow down, we turn off the TV. We may have a partner with us or friends with us, but we pay attention to the food, and we smell the food, and we enjoy the food. And what this does is it takes our body from this sympathetic fight or flight nervous system space over to a parasympathetic rest and digest. This is a true, hi Taylor, biochemical and physiological change that happens within the body. If we go from stressed fight or flight, all of our blood goes to the extremities and goes away from our core, which is where obviously we digest food. And so if we get into a place where the stress is not there, we calm, we smell our food, we chew our food, we say a prayer over our food, meditate over our food for a few minutes, whatever it is that you do, then that brings us into a calm state, and all the blood then goes to the core, and we are able to break down and utilize all the nutrients in our food. Why? Because food speaks to our body. Food is what tells our body what to do. The nutrients within go to our cells and on into our DNA and tells our body what to do. If we're not getting these nutrients, if they're not whole food, real nutrients, then our body becomes confused. Okay, so moving into a rest and digest phase. Along with that is feeling, when you're paying attention to the food and the food that you're eating, you are also feeling the food, and you feel how it makes you feel. If you get a stomach ache, if you get a runny nose, if you get a headache, if you feel sleepy, if you feel energized and great and happy or anxious, all of these things can be because of food and the food that you're eating. And not all foods are good for every person. So sometimes this is where a diet diary comes in handy. You know, not everybody loves to do the diet diary. This is what I have all of my clients do prior to our meeting so I can see what they're eating. But it's helpful for them, for my clients, because they have the ability to track the food and how much they ate, and then how's the food making them feel. I have a lot of clients, you know, after that big meal, they say, I feel too full, or I feel sad or unhappy or unmotivated, things like that. Could that be the food? Could it be life? It could be a number of things, but that's part of why we start putting, you know, it's a piece of the puzzle, and we dig all around to try to put all of these pieces of the puzzle together, and that's one piece. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. She says, there's a shift from fat-free and low sodium to eating more vegetables overall. That is huge. Okay, so if you haven't heard me say it enough, low fat is not a good idea. Even if your genotype is a low fat genotype, it doesn't mean you eat low fat foods. We don't go to low fat yogurt and low fat coconut milk and low fat cheese or whatever. Not that I'm saying dairy is the way to go, but what we do is we eat the whole fat, and the whole food, but we are reducing the amount that we take in. That's what I have to do. I eat a lot of coconut milk, but I have taken the amount that I drink per day, I've taken way back. And I'll do coconut milk and olive oil and coconut oil and all of these great things, but I'm very aware of how much I'm using. Whereas prior to my understanding what my body needed, I was, you know, spooning it all in because fat's the best thing for us. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing for a lot of people. I'm not one of those people. Let's see. It says vegetable noodles and vegetable rice. I think that's great. I have a great friend, Taylor. This is you. You always inspire me with your pictures and your photos of your food because she takes the spiralizer to a whole different level, and she uses it all the time and sends me these pesto pictures, and it's awesome. So Taylor, you're amazing, and you inspire me, and your food inspires me. Okay, so moving on. What else we see? Taking a dip. Okay, so this is kind of already covered. Taking a deeper dive into many aspects of their lives, from stress reduction and intuitive eating, and aligning with brands and food services that match their values. I think that's great. We've got a lot of really good food services that are coming out now that you can get organic, you can get the grass-fed and the pastured and what we want. Now, I'll always advocate, you know, eating at home, because then you truly know what's going into your food, but we can't always do it. And sometimes it's nice to have food delivered to your house because it's easy and we get in a hurry and we want to reduce the stress. And so I think people are really paying attention to not only what we're putting in our own mouths, but but what we're putting into other people's mouths, which is what we should have done. This is what big food doesn't do. They don't care as long as they're making money on the food. They're just throwing crap into the cans and the processed food and these little, you know, frozen dinners and stuff like that, where people really care. They're starting to care because our eyes and our minds have been open to what really good food is. And like I said, how food is life, right? Okay. Another one. So this is one that I disagree with. Essentially, I disagree with part of it. And what she says is, honestly, I don't recommend any sort of diet that requires you eliminate foods. This often leads to binge eating those same foods later on and creates a lot of guilt around food. I think that's partly correct, but in my practice, I deal with a lot of really sick people. And if they eat certain foods, it makes them really, really sick. So in my mind, what she's really talking about is not necessarily food restriction, because sometimes we have to restrict foods. Remember, just because blueberries sound like they're the best thing in the world for everybody, some people can't handle blueberries. Their body does not utilize blueberries for whatever reason. as well as others. And that you can say blueberries or any other food, okay? But to me, it sounds more like she's talking about calorie restriction. If we do constant calorie restriction, if we're not eating enough calories to keep our bodies going, we want to binge. If we're not feeling satiated, if we're not eating enough fat, if we're not eating enough protein, or whatever it is our bodies need. Remember, our bodies are all very different. But that calorie restriction, that feeling of not getting enough, can often lead to the binging. But if you are just someone, that's trying to lose a little bit of weight and you're not sick from foods, then, maybe a different story. If you want a piece of chocolate, then get a piece of chocolate if you're trying to lose weight. But think about what you're eating. This is the big focus for all of us, really, is for us to really think about what it is that we're eating. Let's look at the ingredients. Let's look at what we're putting in our mouth, because we can get something. I saw a chocolate bar and it's 70% dark cacao, and it has all of these great things, and then I see it's got soy and some other things in it that I thought were not really what needed to be in what's called a healthy chocolate bar, right? Dark chocolate. Maybe it was 80% cacao. Either way, it was supposed to be good. And so, as I do, because I'm a total nerd about this stuff, I looked at the ingredients and I thought, well, that's not really what I want to put in my mouth or in my body, or how I want to communicate with my cells and my DNA. Okay, so this one says the low ketogenic movement seems to be gaining a lot of steam. And she says she knows that there are certain medical conditions that can warrant this type of diet, but not something she would recommend for overall wellness. My opinion on this, and it goes back to our genotype. Well, let me do this. Sorry, I want to finish what she says because I think that she has a good point. These types of diets are very difficult to sustain. Committing to a healthy diet that includes healthy carbs is more effective and much more sustainable. So let's kind of break that down real quick. So healthy carbs, remember, vegetables are carbs. They're also low in carbs. They can be higher in carbs, but vegetables are carbohydrates. So when we talk about good healthy carbs, that's really what we want to focus on. Now, some people can handle grains, some people can handle beans. And so know your body, because some people can't handle those things. But veggies are really the bulk of what we should be looking at. I don't care what your genotype is, right? Veggies are huge. They're the most important thing to us. Okay, so what she says is she doesn't recommend it for overall health and wellness. It is, and that it's so restrictive and hard to sustain. It's true, because if you are doing ketogenic, I have worked with a couple of clients on moving into ketogenic. They liked it, but because you have to track everything. I mean, I think you start to get to a point to where what foods you can and can't eat and the amounts. But that's the thing, is you are super low carbohydrate. You're super high fat, sometimes 70 to 90% fat. It's a lot of fat, and not that that's a bad thing for the right genotype. That's what we have to take into consideration really all the time. And one of the, it's a huge part of my practice, because if somebody comes to me and says, I really want to try the ketogenic diet, I say, okay, let's look at your genotype first. Because if you're an ApoE4/4, then that could potentially increase your cardiovascular and cognitive risk factors, which is what I am. And so I would not, actually I tried ketogenic for a month and it was so bad for me. I could just feel how bad it was for me. But anyway, for the right people, it can be good. But things like wine, alcohol, which really should be cut out anyway, but you can't have those things. You might be able to get to the point where you can have like it varies from person to person, but maybe a quarter or a half a glass of wine a couple of times a week max, because what you're doing is you're always checking your ketones. You have to check your blood and check your ketones to make sure you're still in ketosis. And it's pretty easy to jump your body out of ketosis, and you don't want to go in and out of ketosis all the time. So I kind of agree with her, but I think some people really do well on ketosis. Some people will say that the ketogenic diet is really good for those with cancer. And I'm not an expert in that field, but I've seen success. So it's, and where I question, because I don't know, where I question is if somebody has cancer and they're an ApoE34 or 44 genotype, is that a problem? And I don't have an answer for that, but it's something, there are always considerations that we need to look out for, okay? Let's see. This nutrition or dietitian, I'm not sure, says a few questionable trends. Oh, I know. This went from trends to questionable trends, I believe. You know, view as hype, or friends and family and clients should avoid. Anyway, so sorry, we're moving into a different set of questions. But a questionable trend that stood out to this one is drinkable vinegar and powdered supplements. And this one, especially the powdered supplement. So let's start there because this gets me and it makes me crazy. So there's a supplement out there now. I've never tried it. I've seen it advertised, but it's a powdered supplement that you put in your coffee. So let's think about this. Your coffee's hot. Vitamins are destroyed by heat. Minerals are not, but vitamins are destroyed by heat. But they're promoting this. Let's put our vitamins in our coffee and drink our coffee. For one, I can't imagine how bad the coffee tastes. If it doesn't taste bad, then what's in it? Because B vitamins taste pretty bad. So in my mind, it's a waste of money. I mean, it's just like not doing anything except the minerals. The minerals is a good thing, but in this person, what she states is we shouldn't create more, we shouldn't have people drink more coffee. People are going to drink coffee. I'm not a coffee Nazi at all. I want organic coffee. I think it's very important if we're going to drink coffee that it's organic. And some people can't drink it. Depends on their genetic makeup. Their livers can't handle it. Then I'll look at if they're using it as a crutch. If at noon, if they're drinking it all day, or if at noon they have to have their coffee because they're going to sleep. Then I start to think, okay, there's more of a problem here. It's not about the coffee. It's about the body and what's going on with that person's body. Okay, and so the other, the drinkable vinegars, I don't know. I mean, they still have sugar in them, or the ones that I've had really just not very good. I don't like them myself. Apple cider vinegar by itself, although can be a little tough to drink, you can adapt to it. I just drink it out of the bottle now, and I'll chase it with water because it's a little bit, tough on the throat. But anyway, I just don't think they're good. Are they good for you? They probably still have a lot of sugar. The Bragg's, they have a couple. Again, I don't care for them, but they put stevia in them, which is fine, but can be a little bit bitter. So your call. I don't know that they're a terrible thing. One thing she does say is, and this is true, that some people can't do the vinegars. Well, if you can't do vinegar, then you shouldn't grab it in the first place. So what can happen is there are certain conditions or bacterial overgrowth that can happen that just totally messes with our GI. And so if we have, for instance, SIBO, which can be a little bit difficult to find, but SIBO can be really, really irritated. SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it can be really irritated with fermented foods. And so vinegar is a fermented food. So that could be an issue for some people. So again, it just goes back to not everybody can eat the same things. Okay, let's see. Moving on. Let's see. I think we're getting this. Doesn't really matter. So that was the important part of the article. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. You can post them below. As always, you can go to my website, tastelifenutrition.com. I am trying to do these as much as possible every day, so tune in. I try to do it around the same time. It seems to be I'm doing it anywhere from 11 to 2 or so Mountain Standard Time. So I wish that I could schedule it, but I can't. Anyway, Let me know if you need anything, if you have any questions, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.